Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Irwin Cotler, a prominent and respected figure on the national and international stages, whose willingness to stand by his principles and help those in need serves as inspiration for all Canadians. He completed his undergraduate and law degrees at McGill University, where he was a university scholar, a member of the Student Executive Council, and president of the McGill Law Students Association. He then went on to complete his Master of Laws at Yale. Shortly thereafter, he returned to McGill as a law professor, where he taught constitutional law to generations of law students, rarely losing their exams, and was indefatigable chair of Inter Amicus, an international human rights advocacy center. In 1999, Irwin Cotler was elected the Member of Parliament for Mount Royal, a post he held until 2015. Appointed Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada in 2003 by Prime Minister Paul Martin, Mr. Cotler has been an influential force in legislation having direct effects on Canadian life. His legal successes include passing legislation granting same-sex couples the right to marry, initiating the first comprehensive reform of the Supreme Court appointment process, and helping make it the world's most gender-representative apex court, initiating the first ever law on human trafficking, quashing more wrongful convictions in a single year than any of his predecessors, and making the pursuit of international justice a governmental priority. Tout au long de sa brillante carrière, M. Cotler a représenté certains des prisonniers politiques et des militants les plus connus du XXe siècle. En sa qualité d'avocat spécialisé dans les droits de la personne, il a représenté Raif Badawi, blogueur saoudien emprisonné, Nelson Mandela, le russe Andrei Sakharov, lauréat d'un prix Nobel de la paix, Nathan Sharansky, par la suite devenu vice-premier ministre d'Israël, Liu Xiaobo, activiste chinois et également lauréat d'un prix Nobel de la paix, et Saadadine Ibrahim, universitaire égyptien. For his efforts as a human rights activist and a pioneer in the development of peace law, the Honourable Irwin Cotler was appointed to the Order of Canada in 1992. He's received the Queen Elizabeth II's Golden and Diamond Jubilee Medals, was in 2015 the first recipient of the Law Society of Upper Canada's Human Rights Award, and that same year received the Sergei Magnitsky Human Rights Award. In 2019, he was named an Officier de l'Ordre National du Québec. As the founder and chair of the Royal Wallenberg Centre for Human Rights in Montreal, and a member of McGill's Centre for Human Rights and Legal Pluralism, Mr. Cotler strives to unite individuals in the pursuit of justice. He's a true model, role model, leader, and inspiration for future generations. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you the Honourable Irwin Cotler so that you may confer on him the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
It now gives me great pleasure to invite my classmate, great friend over many decades, the Honourable Irwin Cotler, to address convocation. Dr. Cotler.
Chancellor Meehan, Principal and Vice Chancellor Fortier, Mr. Panda, Chair of the Board of Governors, proud, happy families and guests honorés distingués, the worthy recipients of prizes, Professors Poirier. I'm a pleasure to be amongst you today, and in particular, most of all, to be amongst the members of the graduating class of 2019. The Dean over lunch today shared with me how this is a class of special solidarity. And we've already heard how it is a class of exemplary inclusion. And I want to thank you Dean, for that very kind introduction. It is particularly appreciated coming from an inspired leader of the law school as yourself. And I'm deeply moved, humbled by this honorary degree, which I take to be in recognition of the cases and causes that I've had the privilege to be associated with over the years, of the political prisoners that I've had the honor to represent and who have inspired us all, in recognition of my colleagues in academia, bench and bar, parliament, government, with whom I worked together across the aisles in common cause, in recognition of my teachers over the years and my students who became my teachers, many of whom now sit on this great faculty and have become your teachers, and others who graduated from this law school and went on to become parliamentarians and poets, artists and scientists, judges and public servants, advisors to Indigenous peoples like Deborah Corber sitting here, whose daughter Jordana is amongst the graduating class this year. And as it has been mentioned, my former student, colleague and law professor, and now Ministre de la Justice et Procureur Général du Canada, l'Honourable David Lametti. Indeed, I'm particularly moved to be receiving this award from a university and the law faculty that has been my place of study and learning as student and professor for over 45 years. Indeed, my home, my habitat, my source of inspiration et formation. Here I made enduring, lifelong friendships, such as Gordy Eckenberg, my classmate in arts and law, my partner in debating and student government, my lifelong soulmate, and who honored me today by hooding me for this ceremony. Thank you, Gord, for being with us. And you will surely feel honored, class of 2019, by those whose friendships you have nurtured during your time here. And it is here that we were taught by two great law deans, Professor F.R. Scott, the great constitutionalist and apostle of freedom of expression, who epitomized the scholar advocate, and for whom la primauté de droit, the rule of law, became message and metaphor for what freedom and equality were all about. And Dean Maxwell Cone, the quintessential public intellectual, who would quote us from Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes' dictum that a person who did not share the action and passions of their times is deemed not to have lived, and who was the architect of the national law program whose beneficiaries we are all today. And here today, you, my fellow students, the beneficiaries of my law students who went on to become your great law deans. Here with us today, Dean Daniel Jutras, Dean Robert Leckie, Dean Rosalie Jouquier. Bienvenue à tous et à toutes. And at this moment of remembrance and reminder, I recall my parents of blessed memory, my first teachers who provided me with an abiding and enduring moral compass. It was my late father who would teach me at a young age, before I understood the profundity of his teachings, when he said to me that the pursuit of justice is equal to all the other commandments combined. This is what you must teach unto your children. But it was my mother, blessed memory, who, when she would hear my father saying these things, would say to me that if you want to pursue justice, you have to understand, you have to feel the injustice about you. You have to go in and about your community and beyond and feel the injustice and combat the injustice. Otherwise, the pursuit of justice will remain a theoretical abstraction. I suspect that these teachings and that of my lifelong mentor, Nobel Peace Laureate and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, and the student movements of the day when we were here at the time, led to my involvement in the two great human rights struggles of the second half of the 20th century: the struggle against apartheid in South Africa and the struggle for human rights in the former Soviet Union, and which led to my involvement with the political prisoners who became the face, the voice, the vision of these struggles: Anatoly Sharansky in the former Soviet Union and Nelson Mandela in South Africa, both of whom embody the three great struggles of the second half of the 20th century and continuing now in the 21st. The struggle for freedom, the struggle for democracy, the struggle for equality. The whole represented by the political prisoners of today, with whom the Raoul Wallenberg Center and myself are continuously involved. People like as was mentioned, the imprisoned Saudi blogger Raif Badawi, now languishing in his 7th year of imprisonment for saying 7 years ago what the Crown Prince has been saying today. And his sister, Samar Badawi, imprisoned for calling for the right to drive, something which the Crown Prince had himself, to his credit in that sense, instituted, but then imprisoned those who called for it. And the imprisoned Iranian human rights, really iconic lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh, known in Iran as the Mandela of Iran, who has gone down the line on behalf of imprisoned women, on behalf of juveniles destined for execution, on behalf of journalists, students, human rights defenders, other political prisoners, until she became, 2 months ago, herself a political prisoner. Sentenced, a woman in her mid-50s, to 38 years imprisonment and 148 lashes, a virtual death sentence. And one of the most shocking things, 2 days after this sentence, Iran was elected to the UN Commission on the Status of Women. And so I invite you, students of the class of 2019, to take up the torch on behalf of these political prisoners. And may I close now by sharing with you some of the universal lessons that were imparted to me by those to whom I pay tribute to above, and which began, I said, with the teachings of my parents. The first is the importance, the imperative of remembrance, le devoir de mémoire, of the memory of horrors too terrible to be believed, but not too terrible to have happened, and of our collective failure to prevent them. And as the first pro bono group that I had the honor to represent right after law school, my son will tell you that I've only represented pro bono groups since those days, but the first pro bono group, and I won't forget their message, the Association of Survivors of Nazi Oppression. This is 50 years ago, but the words are still as relevant and as timeless today when they would tell me and repeat, we are each, wherever we are, the guarantors of each other's destiny, leading me to the second lesson of Elie Wiesel's admonition of the danger of silence in the face of evil, of the dangers of indifference and inaction in the face of mass atrocity. What makes the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda so unspeakable, where 25 years ago, it's the 25th anniversary commemoration of that genocide, where 25 years ago, 10,000 Tutsis were murdered every day for 3 months. What makes this so unspeakable is not only the horror of the genocide. That would be bad enough. What makes it so unspeakable is that this genocide was preventable. Nobody could say we did not know. Just as in Darfur, nobody could say we did not know. We knew, but we did not act. And in Syria and with the Rohingya today, we knew, still know, and have not acted. And so it's our responsibility to stand up and be counted and not look around to see whoever else may be standing, because in the world in which we live, tragically, there are few who are prepared to stand, let alone to be counted. Never forget, as Eloise put it, that indifference always means coming down on the side of the oppressor, never on the side of the oppressed. Wherever people are persecuted, he put it, whether by reason of their race or religion or belief or sex or any other identifier, that must be your place. That must be your place to stand. Each of you here has a voice. You can speak and you can act. Give expression to your authentic selves. Anchor and nurture yourselves in the values that brought you here and those that have enriched you during your time here. You can be the agents of change and bring about the change that you want to see. The third lesson, that the test of a just society is how it treats the most vulnerable amongst us. How do we treat our poor, our disabled, our refugees, our immigrants, our sick, our violated women, our abused children, our indigenous peoples? Indeed, the most important human right lesson that I was ever taught was taught to me by my daughter Gila, who's with us here today, when she was 15 years old. When she came to me one day and she said, "Daddy, if you want to know what the real test of human rights is, always ask yourself, at any time, in any situation, is what is happening good for children? Is it good for children, Daddy? Give voice then to the voiceless. Empower the disempowered. Take on a case or cause that gives expression to who you are while advancing the public good and enhancing access to justice." And may I close with the words of the great sage Maimonides, which may be the most important lesson for us all, who said we should each see the world as being divided into half good and half evil. Therefore, one good deed by any one of us on any given day can transform the scale from evil to good. It may be saying a kind word or refraining from saying an unkind word. It may be in visiting the sick or comforting the bereaved. It may be in supporting a friend who is struggling or lending a hand to a stranger. And so I say, we need not just dream of a just, humane, and compassionate society that we so desperately need. Each one of us, by our own good deeds, day by day, one by one by one, can help bring this about. Congratulations to the McGill Class of 2019. I'm privileged, I'm honored to be amongst you, and I look forward to you making this a better place for us all. Thank you.